Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the next episode of OneTAKE Live, the show where we discuss the future of work, life, and culture with visionaries, entrepreneurs, academics, game changers, executives, leaders around the world. I am your host, Ian Barkin. I come to you from Tampa, Florida, and that's important. I've never mentioned that before in my intro, so stay tuned. Why is that important? Why would I add that to my intro? Today's show is I'm excited about it. It's a bit of a guilty pleasure as far as the topics that I'm going to discuss and the person I'm going to discuss them with. So I'll do more of a setup and introduction of him, but first, before I get there, two things. One, want to remind everyone of how this whole live streaming thing works. Please share your name and your location with us if you are joining us. And already, Russ, Kate, and Mary, hello. Thank you so much for getting ahead of me on that one. Anyone else who's on, please share that information. And also, please share your questions with us as they occur. I'll try my best to pay attention to them. We'll put them up on the screen. I will read your name and your question, and we will aspire to answer it as well. As a bonus, we'll actually try to answer the question too. So before I give more of a background to him, want to welcome him to the show. So I'm excited to welcome Aakash Patel to OneTAKE Live. Aakash, welcome to the show. Ian,
thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. Okay, so Aakash, this is the part of the show where I talk about you while you sit there and endure it. So you're founder, CEO of a company called Elevate Incorporated. And I'll give a bit more background. So I moved to Tampa a little less than 2 years ago, and tried to get to know the space, the city, the community, et cetera. Try to figure out what's going on here. And I had the privilege, the pleasure of meeting you, and was struck by just the passion, the curiosity, the sort of the personal drive and entrepreneurship all packaged up into one person, and was really excited to meet you. And so, and then learned a little bit more about you, what you're doing, what your background is, what your company does. So let's unpack some of those. First and foremost, let's just sort of start with your background. And are you a Tampa native, or if not, how did you get here, so that we can begin to tell the story?
Well, thanks, Ian. That's a great intro. And, we're really glad you chose Tampa as your home. I'm not from here. I grew up in New Jersey. My parents divorced. I moved here for high school. I went away to college at Florida State in Tallahassee, and I also did a semester in London. I graduated in London and then came to Tampa in 2006. And I really wasn't sure if this was going to be home, to be honest with you, but I met some great mentors, had some great friends kind of convinced me that Tampa was the next big destination city. And they were right, because I've been part of an incredible journey of transformation of this community, and so many people have made it come true, and I'm really lucky. And our business has been around 9 years because of it. Yeah. Because when I started the business 9 years ago, I wanted to be helping people move here and helping them start their businesses and build a career here. And that was the premise of Elevate, is learn, connect, and grow. And we have 5 employees, and we're just blessed to be a part of this journey.
That's awesome. Okay, so the London one's interesting. I may ask questions because I spent a year in London too and loved it. And some background too. So I moved here because of a job. I had my last episode of OneTAKE Live spoke to an author who was talking about how enterprises, to survive in this digital era, need to be nimble. And he went about describing and defining what nimble meant in several sort of super categories. And one of them was around the imperative of developing a strong ecosystem. And he broke ecosystem down into having relationships, not only with your customers, but having relationships with peers, with venture capitalists, even with recruiters, with external partners, et cetera. And that, in my mind, it really clicked and got me excited for this discussion that I knew was coming up when I was speaking to my last guest. Because effectively, the way I view what Elevate does is working to define and develop ecosystems. So I guess tell me more about Elevate, and you can either repair the errors of my summary, or confirm them and expand on it. But so what's Elevate do for? What is it? What was the inspiration? How'd you come to starting it?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Great question.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends were investing in companies. There were technology startups, and Tampa was their basis because this is where they are from. And when people start companies, the first thing they need to know is know their audience. And one of the problems that my friends that were starting businesses were having was when they would hire people to be their brand ambassador, be their business development director, their sales director, they were having a hard time connecting with the community. So I was just talking to a few of them and I said, why don't I help? Why don't I help coach some of your team members, take them to events that I know everyone, and then follow up on the process that I use? Because that's what I was doing at my family business, which was a hotel at the time, or even my friend's technology startup in 2011. And then I said to my friends, I said, I'll start. And then if it works, you guys can continue to retain me. And if not, we can go our separate ways. And I didn't know how to write a business plan, Ian. So I just simply Googled how to write a business plan. And I talked to two mentors, which is a key thing I'll talk about later, who kind of guided me on the structure of how do you price and how do you form a contract, and then also what to call the name. And I wanted to do an altitude analysis to see where companies were when they started talking to us. And so that's how the name Elevate came from. And of course, I publicly launched February 1st, 2012. There was an article in the Business Journal. And one of the things a reporter asked me is, what's your credibility? You're just a 27-year-old kid with not a lot of entrepreneurship experience. Who's backing you? And so I went back to my mentors that helped me through all these different obstacles I had in my career in Tampa. I got here at 22 years old, right out of college, in a time where the economy was actually pretty good. But then we hit that recession in 2008, and it was a struggle. And so I had to reinvent myself because I earned degrees in political science and English literature, and I thought I was going to be a journalist. And so the long and short of it is, at Elevate, the same thing we do today is the same thing I started 2012 February when we launched. Right. We want to introduce company leaders to the community they serve. That's through warm introductions over email, in person, or even at events. Yep. Number two is write great content, which we know is, you're a content expert. Content is key, and the following is important. So we have a great following for local businesses. And the last thing is just traditional press. Writing an op-ed, writing an article that's going to get you in the newspaper, or doing a television interview with a local talk show or a radio interview. So introductions, writing content, and traditional press. Those are the three things we do at Elevate.
Outstanding. I mean, and I always get a kick out of hearing people's, I generally ask what people wanted to do when they grew up, and ask what they went to school for, because you find that there was some kernel of what drove them to do what they did a long time ago that continues to serve them well. So journalism, in your case, as you said, I imagine it was whatever you learned as far as how to follow a story, how to listen, how to really craft a message. And it's, it comes back in spades as far as the messages that you're helping people craft. And you actually had a stint actually at the Tampa Bay Times. Is that correct?
Yeah, during college, I worked there for 3 years. I mean, I really thought that was my career because I got to write 9 stories that were on the front cover of the Times by the time I was 19. So
that's cool.
I thought that was my career, but as you know, when you have the opportunity to meet individuals that shape your life, and they say, "Hey, challenge yourself, think outside the box." That's what happened to me when I came to Tampa. I was like, journalism is not for me. It's more about exactly what you said, listening and learning from others.
Yep. No, that's great. Okay. And I want to come back to, and I'm really glad you brought up mentorship. So we'll come back to that in a moment. I guess for sake of, and we've got a global audience, proven by Om Sharma just said hello on the channel from India. So Om, hello from India. Sarah Grace is from Oregon. So hello, Sarah, for joining us from Oregon. Shay from Boston. So people are from all over the place. But what I think is interesting about the Tampa story, partly it's Tampa in and of itself, but it's also just, it is a sort of an archetype or a model for communities that are doing the right thing, that are putting the right pieces together to really put it on a trajectory of strength, and in some cases of growth and rejuvenation to be the hub of innovation. the hub of where companies want to go and want to be. You have a bit of a backstory as far as having been part of some groups that were looking at and learning from other communities, just to glean ideas and then bring them to Tampa. Walk us through that sort of your role there in those that past.
Yeah, it's really funny. One of my mentors early on told me that, there are a lot of these trips, a lot of these benchmarking trips, they call them, where leaders from one town will then go visit a city or a destination around the world from another town and learn what we can do to improve our communities. And so one of the first trips I went on was led by former Mayor Bob Buckhorn of Tampa. And many big cities have what they call sister cities around the world. Tampa has, I think, 9 or 11 sister cities. But one of the cities we have is in Israel. It's in Ashdod. And so in 2011, I was just about to start Elevate. And I had some time, and the mayor of Tampa at that time, Bob Buckhorn, said, "Hey, Aakash, I'm taking 27 other individuals to Israel. Would you like to go and learn what their culture has to offer and how we can share common practices?" And I said, Mayor, I've got time and I'm young and I love to travel. Let's go. So we went to Israel. And what's interesting is the people that are on the trip are also from Tampa. The other 27 individuals, I didn't interact with them. So for me, it was networking within our group and then networking internationally to build relationships for long-term connections. Okay. And it was on that trip that I realized that what the mayor was trying to do at that time, because he had just got elected, was bring young entrepreneurs around the world to Tampa. And so being part of that vision on the external side, seeing him pitch it to other countries, I then got to shape my business around something very similar because I knew that people were coming to Tampa because of the way he was marketing. Now I knew what they needed once they got here. So for instance, a lot of them want to know what charity to give back to. There's a lot of charities in our community and all over the world. Right. Some are internationally known, some are very small. So how do you advocate for one over the other? So I created an analysis. Another reason is there's chambers of commerce. Every community around the world has a small chamber of commerce. In Florida alone, there's over 400 chambers of commerce. In the Tampa area, there's 15, 20. So which chambers are good for which type of businesses? Is it what is it? If it's a hair salon, if it's a laundromat, if it's a restaurant, which chamber is the best? So we started creating those analyses. Sports, sports is an international form of entertainment. You can take customers to games, you can take families out. What sports teams are the most affordable for businesses to invest with? We have 4 franchises here, right? We have soccer, baseball, we don't have basketball, but soccer, baseball, football, and hockey. Right. And of course, we're all champions. Of course, we are the home of the champion, Super Bowl champion Buccaneers and the Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning. So it was one of those things in 2012, Ian, that I thought about on the way back from that trip to Israel. And then ever since, every time a Chamber of Commerce would have a benchmarking trip, whether it be Philadelphia or whether it be Charlotte, the most recent one, Austin, Texas, Denver, Colorado, I would go on those trips, take notes, and not only just about the destination, but about the people that were spending time, including colleagues of yours at Sykes Enterprises.
Interesting. So a bit of a segue for a moment. I'll come back. I did move here, like I said, a little bit less than 2 years ago. Upon moving here, the hockey team won the Stanley Cup. The baseball team went to the World Series, and the football team won the Super Bowl. Is it fair of me to assume that I'm the reason that all of that happened?
It's a good thought. And our soccer team, the Rowdies, also made it to the finals, but it was canceled because of COVID. So just saying, I think next year, let's see if we can do it again, Ian, and we'll come back to it.
Fair enough. Okay. It's in my mind that it was it was causational, and so I want to just discuss the negotiation of what it's worth for the town for me to stick around. No, so okay, but I'm not. I do want to get to I'm not the only person moving here, and there's some spectacular numbers we can cover in a moment. But I do want to hear. You just listed a lot of different cities and a lot of different trips and a lot of different fact-finding missions. Were there any epiphanies? Were there any sort of moments that stood out to you from that Israel trip or from any other, as far as what other communities were doing to nurture growth, entrepreneurship, investment, et cetera?
I think what's really interesting, and you know it because Ian, you and I have talked about the partnership that your company has with University of Tampa.
Mhm.
As a trustee, I traveled to Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and I went with the president of the university, and again, 20 other Tampa residents who are affiliated with the University of Tampa. And I think the epiphany I had was people know Tampa around the world, and they want to come study here. It's in that case, that trip was about education, and of course, the University of Tampa is an international destination for students all over from 140
Mhm.
countries plus. But I think what the commonality of all these delegations that I've had the honor and privilege of traveling to is that we're proud of where we live, and we know we're not from here, but we are this is an adopted community.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to become part of our business society. You've done it. You've got here less than 2 years, and I feel like you've made an impact on boards that you've already served. Your family's been well placed in the community, even though you've been here during a pandemic. You know the openness our community serves. And so when I talk to people around the world or around other cities, sometimes people face as obstacles, and we see that as opportunities.
Got it. It is. It is interesting, as you say. It's there are people who've been here for generations, but it is a city, a community that's characterized by a lot of influx. Just globally, this happens, but nationally, there's a real sort of top of mind story, especially in the worlds of enterprise, entrepreneurship, innovation. As far as migrations, there are two states that just so happen to be inheriting a lot of those migrants. Texas is one of them, and the other is Florida. Share some of the stats as far as the inflow into Florida in general and Tampa specifically.
Yeah, I think Florida has about 22, 23 million residents. Florida itself gets 1,000 people a day moving here. The Tampa Bay region gets about a third of that. We think approximately, just from some states during the pandemic, as you can imagine, people are leaving. New York specifically, 200 people a day leave New York to move to Florida. So the influx of people here is immense. We're going to see our economy continue to thrive. Tourism is up. Hotels are being built. Restaurants are being built. As you know, we hosted the Super Bowl and we won the Super Bowl. And we are about to host WrestleMania, which is another worldwide event, April 10th in the Tampa Bay area. So I think what you're going to see in the next couple of years, Ian, is the housing market continue to boom. Young people now know they can work from anywhere. Our airports have more international destinations right now than ever. Tampa itself has direct flights to Switzerland and Germany and Amsterdam, London, of course. So we're getting more destinations as we can imagine. So I think now more than ever, people are coming to Tampa, and the people forget that it's also a military town. I mean, one of our largest employers is MacDill Air Force Base. Right. We have SOCOM and CENTCOM here. So around the world in the United States military community, we're a big military community. So that along with it comes the veterans hospitals. It comes to school systems. The people are going back to school, like USF and University of Tampa, which I mentioned, or St. Leo University. Right. And then also, of course, we have our school districts. You know, Hillsborough County Public Schools is one of the largest school districts in the nation. And all that to say is it's a perfect storm of why people are moving and why people are thriving in our community. And so our hashtag at Elevate Inc. is Tampa has swagger. I coined that phrase in 2014 when I saw the rise of our community. So if you go to tampahaswagger.com or hashtag Tampa has swagger on social media, you'll see all of Elevate's work. And we really, we're really grateful to all the leaders that are elected that helped us get here.
That's outstanding. So I sincerely regret that we did not prepare any WrestleMania questions, and I don't trust myself to come up with any on the fly. But now I remember Superfly Snuka from my childhood by saying "fly." Man, wrestling. No, but it's what's so energizing to see, as I said at the beginning, passion is you're clearly a passionate advocate for the community, for the ecosystem. Let's go back to talking about the sort of the fundamentals of ecosystem for a moment, because there are pieces and parts that are coming together. You've referenced many of them. As far as sources of talent, there are universities here. University of Tampa is right downtown. It's across the river from my my office that I don't go into very often anymore. But when I'm able to again, I can look down the window or out the window and down and see the school. Our founder happened to feel very strongly about the concept of any great city has a great university at its heart. He actually said that to me when we first met, and as a result, the College of Business at the University of Tampa is named after him. It is the Sykes College of Business, which I thought was one of the cooler things in the world when I was getting to know Sykes, is that we've put sort of money and commitment where our sort of philosophy and ideas were. But that's just one part, right? Education and a source of talent. There are other components coming together, and you're actively involved in many of them to make sure that there are financiers, that there are incubators. So talk a little bit about, and this is, again, Tampa specific, but it's more because it's relevant in a broader sort of context to me, because so many cities, so many countries are trying to figure out how to compete on this front by being a sort of a substrate, a rich soil bed in which to germinate seeds, grow startups, and create great jobs and opportunities. Tampa seems to be doing it pretty well. So what else is going on in the Tampa ecosystem to make that happen?
Yeah, great question, Ian. I really think it goes back to the word that I like to use a lot is, millennials. The millennial generation, the Gen Z generation, that's the generation after millennials, have had a chance to take on leadership opportunities at a very young age in this community, because the folks that have been in this community a really long time want to mentor and nurture the next generation. And so when people move here and we invite them to join organizations, like you moved here and you joined the board of Synapse, and that's how you and I first met. Synapse is an organization that it's a not-for-profit that before the pandemic had a convention, but it brings together think leaders in technology and has a convention. And we, of course, have been virtual ever since and been very successful. But just like that organization has, so many others have created after that. And the whole point of it is it's not just about who's been here the longest can serve as the leader or the board member. It's a collective idea think organization. And so for me, I serve on the board of Leadership Tampa Bay. I serve on the board of the Tampa Bay Chamber of Commerce. I chair the Early Learning Coalition of Hillsborough County. Those are all passion organizations that I'm privileged to serve on, but they each have a purpose on making sure that the best talent stays in Tampa, the best employers give back to Tampa, and the opportunities for those who want to serve are allowed. And that's equal on all gender, race, religion, all of that. And so that's been going on the last 10 years in Tampa since I started Elevate. And so if anyone wants to do a program for leadership, they just raise their hand and we help them get involved. And so that's my way of telling each and every one of you who are watching today that in your community, if you're volunteering, that's networking and that's building a brand and that's building a reputation to help you make your community better. It could be something as volunteering at a school and reading to children. Now it's virtual, but reading to children, or it could be as simple as of just mentoring a high school student how to work on a budget for their personal finances. That's what charities like Junior Achievement do at financial literacy. So I would say, Ian, the number one thing that I've learned is join a not-for-profit organization and make sure if you're not serving in a leadership role, help someone serve in a leadership role and work with that executive director or the organizer to give it all you can. Even if it's just 1 or 2 hours a month, that's still better than nothing, because everyone needs help right now.
Right. I want to go into that more, but I want to save that as sort of the best for last, because I do want to explore some of that early learning work that you're doing and contributing to the school system here in Hillsborough. Before we get there, so let's revisit again. You've commented on brand and networking. Individuals, I'm seeing such and I guess it's a compounding thing. Maybe it is millennials. It's people who've got passion, who've got capability, who've got a real sort of drive and gumption. They want to achieve great things. And maybe it's coupled with also the mechanisms and tools we have available today, right? There's just so many more channels. Before it was much harder. You had to hit the street, you had to knock on doors. Now you've got Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and any number of channels. And what's so interesting is you mentioned print media. You date yourself a little bit, but it's still thriving. It's still there. And in fact, you wrote an article recently, we'll also get to, on millennials. When you advise your clients, when you advise anyone, as far as how do they do what you've done, how do they build the brand, build the network that they aspire to have, what are your top tips for people who are trying to get out there and build themselves?
Yeah, number one, you got to set a goal for yourself. So for me, I want to connect with 10 people a day. So if that's on LinkedIn, reaching out to people, going through LinkedIn and seeing who's sharing articles, sharing posts, sharing photos, connect with them and send them a message. Even it's simple, how are you doing? Can we get coffee? You and I, Ian, have done that. You've reached out to me, I've reached out to you, and we just have a call for every other month, just a call to catch up, because right now it's so important. So number one, set a goal for yourself, whatever the goal is, stick to it. Number two is share relevant content. So if there's an article that you've read online or in the Wall Street Journal or in the New York Times or whatever publication you like, or if it's something that one of your friends wrote, share it, because people want to know what your interests are. So for me, interestingly enough, during the pandemic early on, a lot of people had said that the millennial generation, the generation we're in, was the cause of the pandemic. And I said, hold on, millennials have survived the recession in 2008. They are working in the healthcare facilities, the law enforcement facilities. And so I wrote an article that kind of defended our generation and sent it to the Tampa Bay Times. They ran it, the link I put on LinkedIn, and I connected with so many people who said, thank you for talking about our generation. Thank you for defending us. My intent wasn't to start the dialogue, but the dialogue started and it spun off in a conversation, which spun off into connections. And so again, for everyone out there, follow up with people right away once they connect with you. Set a goal so you're always connecting on LinkedIn almost daily, 10, 5, whatever connections that you have time for. And number three, share relevant content, because again, 80% of the content you see is about other people. 20% should be about yourself. So when people are posting about themselves, then the people know they might get turned away from what they're doing. But if they're posting something about what your community is doing, they want to share it, like it, and they want to engage with you in dialogue. And that opens up a whole other network, because it's, for us, we have a saying at Elevate Inc. It's be bold, be brave, and be you. And right now, this is the time to do it.
That's great. I mean, it's connecting. It's always about connecting. You're either connecting people to other people, or you're connecting people to content that you think would be valuable to them. And I totally agree. Again, this is why I described it as a guilty pleasure. I've loved this medium. Obviously, I've got a video podcast, for goodness sakes. I hope people know that, especially the people currently listening to it. But that idea of not advertising and not promoting and not pitching, but just educating, sharing, providing something of use. And that's again, I see you embody that. You've got the passion. Mentally, though, you're also constantly thinking about connections, right? You can sort of see the gears turning as far as how can I add value to one individual by either connecting them to other individuals I know, or information that I have access to. You mentioned LinkedIn. Is that the best channel for people who want to build brands and get out there? Or are there others that you suggest?
I'm a big Twitter person. I know you are as well. And I'm a big Facebook person. I just recently got on Instagram a couple years back and haven't leveraged it as much as I need to.
I tried to find your TikTok channel. I was looking for you lip syncing stuff, but I couldn't find your TikTok channel.
Yeah, I've not got into TikTok yet or Snapchat or anything like that. But I think the theory on the social media aspect of things is set a schedule for when you want to share things. So for me, it's every day at 7 a.m., 11 a.m., and 4 p.m. That's the times that I want to review social media and share and like things and stick to it. And because the thing about it is that you'll notice some trends and some people that are on the same kind of wavelength as you on what they're sharing, and you'll start the dialogue that way. And then the other thing is always ask people for if they need anything. So when I reach out to someone after they connect with me, I said, hey, thanks for connecting. This is what Elevate Inc. does. And by the way, how can I assist you?
Right.
So many people don't ask that question. Yeah. They just say, this is what we do. Let me know if you can give me any business. Yeah. Add value to somebody.
Yeah, that's I think social media allows people to connect seamlessly, and sometimes they just connect. And I still accept a lot of people who reach out to me and just ask to connect on LinkedIn, but you do sort of wonder why they've reached out, and you'd love to know what you can share between yourselves. And sometimes sometimes it's maybe it's generational, maybe it's cultural. Sometimes people just sort of straight up ask for something, and which seems like there needs to be some nurturing and some training there, as far as if I don't, what's not necessarily what's in it for me, because that's too selfish, but just there's different ways to sort of work your way into that sort of dialogue and that stage of your relationship than just calling up and asking for a job or information. Okay, so we've talked about, first of all, a frightening rigor in your schedule. I am both impressed and exhausted by that rigor of 10 people a day and in specific times during the day to share content. That is awesome. And I also like the reference to The Who as far as talking about my generation. So thank you for that too. I saw The Who actually at Amalie Arena here in Tampa, home of the Stanley Cup winning. So let's wrap up with those two different topics you spoke about. One was mentorship. You referenced a mentor early on. Clearly, you have a or many mentors that mean something to you. Define mentorship, what it means to you, and how people should approach both being mentors and also searching for mentors.
Yeah, I think it's someone who doesn't have to be in your profession, but someone who has been around the business world a little bit longer than you, and has overcome some adversity. So when you get put in a situation where you're not sure the best road to take, you can ask them for guidance. And for me, they're actually my mentors and my friends, because my situation was I wasn't sure what to do. Should I stay in Tampa? Should I take a job with the company, or should I start my own business? Mm-hmm. So I went to my friends who are now my mentors and were my mentors at the time. I just didn't know it. I said, do I start a business? And they said, well, if you do, this is what we would want. And this is what we think you would be good at. And sometimes it's hard to hear that, because generally I think I'm good at everything, right? I mean, most people, at the time when I was 27, I thought I was, but they had to say, look, you focus on this. And so mentors help you focus. And that's what I needed at that time. And that's why when I went back to the Tampa Bay Business Journal, which ran the story of elevating starting, they said, find a credibility group or a board of directors before you start a business. And that's what I ended up doing. And so, yes, I'm a mentor now to others. I mentor any family member that needs help, or even some young professionals through the Emerging Leaders of Tampa Bay for their mentor protege program. And it's all about just setting expectations and goals and sharing what you know, because what you know can help them, and you just don't know until they learn.
Right. I like that. I like your characterization also of tapping into your friends as mentors. I suppose I've got this mental image of a mentor being someone older than me, somebody who's got quite a bit more experience. But in your case, somebody who just knows you is a massively valuable mentor, who just knows what your strengths are and what your passions are. Okay, so let's talk about, you've mentioned joining nonprofits. You're part of several, but the early learning nonprofit, I've both been really impressed by the work that you've done there. I've seen you post on social media just some of your trips that you've taken to classrooms. Explain what the mission is and how you've contributed to it.
Yeah, in Florida, early learning coalitions were started by Governor Jeb Bush in the year 2000. It was funded by our legislature still today. So if you are a single parent and you want to put your child through what you call volunteer pre-kindergarten, the coalition oversees several programs, but one of them is VPK. And it's very simple. It's state funded. It's a paperwork, and we oversee the providers that teach children the most essential things, like how to read, how to say their ABCs, recess, social time. So it's the 8:30 to 11:30 program in Florida. It's called Volunteer Pre-Kindergarten. It's VPK. It's free to any parent who is in Florida, and they just have to be applying through the Early Learning Coalition system. And so the board that I chair for the governor, we have about $100 million budget. We have 110 employees, and we oversee several programs like Head Start, school readiness. But our main goal is to make sure that every child in Hillsborough County has a quality access to education. Because what we know now is in the year 2030, half of the professions in Florida will not exist. That means the children like your young kids, and they're going to be running this, not only town, this state, this nation on professions we don't even know what they are yet. So reading and writing and the essentials are so important. And we have to provide the basics so they can then learn. And then in the whole world of how to predict if our society is going to be a greater good, we know that if children learn how to read at an early age, they're more likely to graduate from elementary school, middle school, high school, get better jobs in the universities, join the military, stay out of trouble. And then for business people out there, everyone in business is about return on investment, no matter where you are in the world. You put $1 in, what's your dollar out? In early learning, $1 investment gets you $8 in return. So why not invest in something that you know you're going to get a return back in our society? Yeah. So for me, this is why I'm involved in early learning. It's not a political issue, although it is a political appointment I received by Governor Rick Scott, now a senator. It's a fundamental issue. Every child should have the access to quality education. And as a business owner, no matter where you are, if you can help give back volunteer time to a cause that pretty much is universally agreeable, right. I would encourage you to do so. And that's why for the past 7 years, I've been the chairman of the Early Learning Coalition of Hillsborough County.
That's tremendous. Well, thank you. It's so incredibly important. And I agree, education in general, wherever you are, especially in light of, and we spend a lot of time talking about the future of work. As you alluded to, my children will be holding jobs that we didn't even know could exist now, but will become jobs in the future. It's imperative that we, in some cases, close digital divides. We give everyone access to solid education. Some channels are enabling that to happen better. But communities need to pitch in and make sure that kids can get to school. And it also helps the parents too, because the parents need to work. And so it allows them to do both, which is so incredibly important. Before we go, we had a question that came in from Om. Om from India has asked about the mentorship and the relationship. He asked, how often should mentors and their proteges connect? What's the You're so structured and everything else. What's your cadence? How often do you speak to your mentors?
First of all, thanks for tuning in from India. Really appreciate everything that's going on over there and following it very closely. Great question. For me, there's no right or wrong answer. For me, it's once a month. That's just a standard, hey, let's schedule the third Thursday of the month for us to first spend an hour and a half together. But if you have earlier pressing issues, you should not wait until that whatever schedule is to reach out to them, because the mentor will tell you, call me anytime, because at the end of the day, they know that crises do happen and things do change dramatically. For me, every month is different because I have customers join us and some leave. And so I've got to deal with all sorts of different things. And sometimes I'm like, well, hold on, what can I do to attract this customer or save this face? And that's when I reach out to my mentor.
Outstanding. Thank you. And thank you, Om. So, Aakash, thank you so much for your time. You are the consummate networker, contributor. Your energy is infectious. You have built a strong brand and ecosystem, and you help people who have come to the community recently, who've been here a long time, to do the same and to follow the best practices you've developed. I'll leave the last word with you. Any other points of wisdom or guidance that either you share with your clients at Elevate, or that you contribute to the community and the groups that you're part of?
I just wanted to ask you, Ian, if you don't mind being my mentor.
Is it monthly? Sure. I don't know what I have to share. But I'd be thrilled. That's an intimidating question, actually. That's kind of interesting. When you ask someone to be your mentor, it's because my brain just went to like, oh crap, what on earth would I be able to provide you with? But yeah, sure, let's do it.
But see, that's the key too, because you're going to learn from things that I got going on.
Right.
I'm going to learn from things that you've got going on.
Oh, absolutely.
And why I tell people and our clients at Elevate is we are your accountability partners, but we're also your mentors to get through this, navigating this world that we're in the Tampa Bay community. So At Elevate Inc., we want to learn, connect, and grow. And so you, Ian, are part of that community and helping us learn, connect, and grow through Sykes and OneTAKE. And thank you for all that you're doing, and thank you for having me as a guest. And if anyone has more interest in learning about what we're doing, you can follow me on Twitter at Patel Times or use our hashtag Tampa Swagger.
Perfect. And we'll put all those links into the post and the website once we put this show live. And we'll also put reference to your recent article about millennials and why they're moving to Tampa. And also we'll aspire to put some other information around some of the other efforts you've contributed to, because they're also incredibly valuable and important. So with that, Aakash, thanks a million. Thank you everybody who joined and spent time with us today on OneTAKE Live, and hope you're all well, safe, happy, healthy, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks so much.